Yo, what's up everybody? My name is Dave Brodeur, also known as the artist Brilly. So what are we doing today? Today we're going to hop in Cinema 4D and I'm going to show you why Cinema 4D is my favorite design tool. It's always been my favorite design tool. Super easy to use to jump in and start creating something visually appealing. You know, no one wants to see something ugly animate. So let's just start off and focus on the design of it. Thank you so much, Maxon, for having me here today. And let's not waste any more time. Let's jump in and do it. Here we are in Cinema, and you're gonna see throughout this project as we design it that I'm using a lot of scanned 3D objects, and these meshes are just outrageous, right? I mean, really high dense geometry, and this is gonna be like really difficult to like do a whole lot with. Now I do have it posed and set up already, but what we're going to do, and I'm gonna skip through this part fairly quickly, is if we go now into the hand remesh, you know, this is like another one of my new favorite updates is the remesh object. So basically I just took that scan version so it could get some kind of geometry that was like functional here while still giving us all that kind of detail. Now remember, 3D in Cinema 4D is amazing because it's a design software at the same time. It's not just 3D, it's my favorite tool to design in. And so I thought, well, what else could we do with this hand here? And so I thought, you know, it'd be a great idea to maybe go into MoGraph now and do some cool animation. So, you know, all this is very simple kind of breakdown here. If I turn off let's turn off the sweep here and the tracer. Let's turn that back on. All we've got is a series of, let's increase this just for a moment, a series of spheres cloned in a line, right? Oh, I didn't mean to do the segments. Let's just do the size so you can see them, right? And so, and then I just have a tracer object that's going to begin to connect all of those in the cloners. And so let's turn this way back down again. Let's say like 10. And that's it, right? And so now we've made a really cool pattern here out of MoGraph, and I'm going to now make this a material. I'm going to just render this image sequence out and make that a material that we can then in fact place onto our hand again, right? And so I made another one, and this one all just like works off the sound, right? This is going to be an audio visual thing. So, you know, I'm like making all my patterns and I'm making my textures inside of Cinema 4D as well. So let's then hop back into the hand that we have remeshed, right? This is that remeshed hand that we did. And I laid UV maps out for it. May as well take a look at the UV maps too. Right? So I laid out UV maps because laying UV maps out of the scanned version of the hand, impossible. Like, I mean, I think your computer's just gonna like burn. It's like way too heavy of geometry. So I was able to lay out the UV maps now for this hand. And now let's go back to the kind of like standard view. And now I can start, you know, adding materials to it and making this interesting. So if I take my hand and I just basically duplicated that hand here and I select all the faces. If we go into something like mesh and we do move and we do like a normal scale, and like I just like do a normal scale from like 100 to like 101 and hit apply, it's just going to allow this geometry here to go outside of the mesh of the other hand. Let me just turn off my work plane here. And I have another material which I called patterns, and the patterns, I just throw one of those 3D patterns that I made in Cinema into here as an alpha channel, and we can add that on to the duplicate of that hand mesh. And you know, we can go in here, we can say, yeah, let's animate this thing, and now we've got that animated texture onto the hand, which is just like absolutely fantastic, and it's all made inside of Cinema. I didn't use any other software, you know. It's like all my materials, my textures, everything is being generated in MoGraph now. Let's take a look at another one. Let's go in here and instead let's import in we'll import in the line. So right now that was the diamond shape that I just showed you. Let's import these lines into here. And I think we'll just have to hit calculate, so it calculates into the animation. But then just like that, now we've got the animating lines that we created again in MoGraph now as a material onto our object. So let's move on and move over into designing and building the whole scene. All right, so let's hop in here and let's start this piece by bringing in some basic geometry. So I've got a marijuana nug, like a flower, a bud, whatever you want to call it, and we are going to import this in. Now this isn't actually, this is like a scanned like flower from a weed plant, right? And so like if we zoom in on this, probably let's just delete that material, you'll see that it's like actual like photogrammetry, like 3D scan of that piece. Now we're going to look at a couple different methods on like best ways of like utilizing this stuff and working with these type of scans. Obviously like the mesh, you know, that they kick out is really not all that like amazing, but like you can get some really nice detail from the actual geometry itself. Let's open up the Octane live viewer here so we can to the materials. Let's start setting them up. You'll notice how I like working inside of 3D is always to focus first on design. So design is always the key. Like before I even want to like animate anything, I just want to make sure it looks good first, because who cares about anything else if it can't look good? You know what I mean? Like no one wants to see something ugly be animated. So that's going to be our main focus here, is like, let's just get like a dope render and then we can kind of build out. All right. So to get an image texture in, I mean, obviously, like you can just drag and drop the image texture in here, right? And we can import the image texture in, but then we have to do it for every single one, and that's kind of like an annoying aspect. And this works the same in Redshift too. So instead, let's just open up our materials here and drag and drop all of them in. Right? And it'll take a second to load, but then once it does, it's like perfect. It added them all into that nice little image texture for us. So now all we got to do is link these up. So here we go. And I think the only other one I've got is, I think this is a bump. Let's see. Yeah, that's a bump map. Perfect. All right. So we've got a bump map, we've got a normal map, and our diffuse map. Now, this is probably as far as I'm taking this, because I'm actually not going to be like making this to be like a realistic like weed bud. We'll start off that way, but we're gonna get trippy with this. That's the whole point, you know. So like this collaboration I'm doing with like Scott Storch, this drops on 420 on Nifty Gateway. So like that's the theme here, and there's like other like deeper meanings behind a lot of this stuff too. You know, if you're familiar with any of like Scott Storch's history, if not, you should check it out. It is a straight up movie. I'm gonna change the scale of this. You can see if I add a sphere into my scene, you can see that this scan is rather small. I'm just gonna like change this. I probably could have like changed this scale upon import, but I didn't. You can do that though too. And now we've got our little like nug in here. Let's just preview what the heck this looks like. Now there's no lighting or anything like that, but now we get to see it. Let me just update my aspect ratio. I'm just gonna do a square aspect ratio. Oop, there we go. All right. And something that you also want to try to make sure you do is, since we will be animating, I like to get in the habit of like always making sure that the project setting has the frame rate that I want to be using, and it's good to just do it in the beginning, otherwise you forget and you keyframe at a different frame rate. So here we go. Our timeline's all set up. You know, like the weed nug looks pretty good, right? However, when you start getting close is when it kind of starts breaking down a little bit. Like it still looks good, I guess, but you know, we're missing all that detail. It's like it's got a little CG-ness happening as far as I'm concerned. Now, we haven't even lit this or anything like that, but we are going to light it up. All right, I'm not going to do too many of those jokes. It's pretty bad, but I thought it worked for that one. All right, so let's start doing that. Let's just try to make this nicer, make this piece of 3D geometry a little bit nicer. So, you know, knowing like what your objects look like that you want to make look nicer is going to be a big like key aspect to this. So like if I like, you know, if we zoom in here, whoop, sorry, I'll have to zoom in. You can see that like like weed has got like these little like fuzzies and hair and stuff like on them, and like right now it's just getting kind of mashed in the texture, so it's really not creating all that interesting of a look. And then some of these like little like, you know, hairs that are on this, a little fuzziness, you know, it's mashed into the geometry, so like it's just all part one of like the same exact texture. So let's see if we can add some hair to this. So we'll hop in here, select my geometry, and we'll go to simulate. Let's see, it would be in, is it, yeah, hair object, add hair. Sorry if my like little menus aren't popping up. It does that when I screen record. I think it's some sort of driver issue, but I'll still be able to work through it. So let's add some hair. Now, obviously, probably too much hair. And let's just zoom out here so we can see what we're looking at, right? Yeah, a little bit insane. Too much hair. The length is too long as well. But let's start dialing that down. Now, I don't want dynamics for this. I don't want the hair to be like dynamic hair. And let's come back in here and let's just say, I have no idea. So let's just say the length is 2. Cool. All right. So that might work. Maybe I'll make these ones a little bit longer because we're gonna do more than just one set. And let's start labeling this. So this is gonna be like the orange hairs that we kind of saw in our last render. And let's control the number of hairs. Right now it's at 50,000, which may be too much because we're gonna have, like I said, multiple layers. So I don't know. Let's do like 2,500 for the kind of hair count on this. All right. As far as like the segments go, since this is going to be the hairs that I think are going to be the longest, I don't want to start dropping the segments too low because I am going to like mess with some of these settings in here. All right, so what colors are we going to do? Well, I think it's probably a good base to just go off like the renders of like this actual texture to kind of start off with. So let's say the color goes anywhere from, let's do like this dark brown orange, and let's see if we can capture something a little bit lighter in here. Let's see. Yeah, maybe something like this, maybe a little bit more saturation. Yeah, I don't know. We're just kind of testing things right now. I imagine that the thickness is going to be way too much as well. So let's just drop this down also. I always like having the tip of the hair to be thinner than the root of the hair. You can apply some variation to it. I don't think that's necessary. It's going to be pretty small in here. Let's throw in some variation to the length. Let's increase this a lot more. And same with like, let's do the same thing with the scale. The scale will kind of mess with all the parameters, like the height and the width together. So let's just increase that setting. Let's throw on a little bit of frizz and let's throw on a little bit of kink as well. May as well throw on bend and curl. Why not? We want this to kind of be really kind of like fuzzy looking. All right, so we've got that set. So again, we really have no idea what the heck this looks like. Let's add a camera though into our scene. And so let's get a Octane camera object, throw that in here, and let's start defining this camera's location. So I'm gonna take this camera and let's just orient this properly. I'm just gonna have this camera facing 0, X and Y. We could probably face it at 0 as well. I don't know. Let's just start moving this back in Z. Okay, I will want to move this up slightly, just so it's like centered. And we'll change this camera in a little bit, but this is just like something so we can start to frame this object up. All right, and again, we haven't put any lights in there, but at least let's start to see the render. Okay, cool. Like this starts to give it one little extra layer here. We should probably start throwing in some lights now at this. All right, so let's do that. Let's get just some like area lights. And like so far, you're gonna notice like this is all independent of what render engine you're using, right? It's just like texturing, lighting, and this is gonna be applicable to everything that you're doing. All right, so I really like backlighting hair a little bit. And so that's really when it's gonna like kind of really stand out and be interesting. So I'm gonna just pop out of my camera for a moment. And I want this lighting maybe to be just like up and at like a 45-degree angle. And I can just adjust this a little bit. As long as it's kind of like facing my object, maybe I move it a little bit closer, a little bit over. Yeah, something like this should be probably pretty good. I have no idea. Let's hop into the camera here. And let's also maybe add a background into the scene. And so let's add that in. Let's just say a texture environment. And let's just make this black because I don't want this to be adding any kind of additional light in here. All right, so now you can see we're really only lighting it with this light off to the side. Maybe we'll tweak this parameter a little bit. Maybe I want to make it a little bit bigger. And then let's tell it that like I don't want to have that object seen in via our camera. We'll probably want a little bit of fill light here as well. So let's just keep adding in some lights. So we'll do another area light. Just move this off to the side here. Oh, let's do that. Let's actually get out of our camera view. And maybe even bring this down a little bit. And scale this down. So I'm going to use this one just to kind of fill in some light, kind of off to the side here a little bit. Maybe even yeah, I think something like that's probably pretty good. And then we just gotta flip this guy 180 degrees. All right, let's hop back into that camera. So you can see we're slowly going to start filling in these areas of interest. Now, not there yet, but you know, slowly we're going to try to get this to have some sort of like mood and aesthetic. I'm also going to be using subsurface scattering a lot in this, so I am going to change it over already to path tracing, just so we can kind of get there ahead of time. So just keep it like that. All right, let's see what we can do to make this material just a little bit more interesting and get a little bit more detail, because it is starting to look fairly flat to me in here. So I could take this bump map that I've got and apply this as a displacement map as well. Now I do want some detail out of it. I don't want there to be, let's see, maybe 0.08 or something like that. I don't want there to be a whole lot of height to this. And then, you know, let's just keep the mid-level down so it doesn't push out too far. And let's drop that in there. Let's turn it off. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's doing a whole lot, but I do want it to be subtle. It's about adding this stuff up. Maybe increase some of the power to these. I just want even more kind of like noise into this piece right now. Then maybe we can like, you know, see where this rotates to. Like maybe this isn't like the spot that we want it to be. We could give it a little bit of an angle, rotate it around. You know, maybe a little bit like this. You know, really it's just going to be trying to find kind of an interesting location for it, so it's kind of got that kind of like unique look. Yeah, I mean, just some subtle little adjustment there. Let's also start messing with the camera. Again, remember, I'm not even going to be using this, but you know, it's important to like focus on just like some of the design aesthetic for a little bit as well. And I'm going to blur. So like I'm doing some just like post-processing techniques with the camera here to kind of like lighten it up and give it a little bit more atmosphere to this piece as well. And let's maybe go in and start adding in some more hair. All right, so we'll select our object. Maybe I should just label this too. I'll just call this bud. Select it, and we'll go into simulate, hair object, add hair. So again, way too far out here. The last one we did 4. Let's do these ones even smaller. We'll bring this down to 2. Since it doesn't have as much length, we definitely don't need as much height. And then maybe, I don't know, like 10, 12,000, 15,000 count here will be kind of like a nice in between. And then we're gonna have to start working on what that material is. So for me, you know, I want these to start being kind of like lighter, kind of like fuzzies. So like I'll just maybe color pick. I'm just gonna try to get like not a black green, but something that's a little bit darker. Maybe something in this area. Maybe I'll like force it to be a little bit more saturated. Yeah, maybe something like that. And then we'll do the same thing here, but I'm just going to bring this one and make this one a lot more saturated and a lot lighter. You know, I want to really dip further into kind of the white, a really white, light green, a little less desaturated. Yeah, something like this. Okay, so now we also want to start playing with kind of the thickness of it. Again, just like we did before. So we'll just do the same settings, which I think were 0.08 and 0.02. Again, we've got a lot of room to kind of mess around with that. Length, same thing. Let's just like have more variation here. Scale, we'll do the same exact thing. So we'll drop this down and increase the variation, and you got it. Throw some frizz, throw some kink, throw some bend, throw some curl onto this as well. All right, let's preview this and see what it looks like now. All right, so we've got that next level on here. If I just hop out of that camera frame up for a second so we can maybe come in a little bit closer here. You know, you can see the texture is really not holding up anymore, but having that little bit of hair on there is now like making it feel like it's got a lot more detail to it than it did just a moment ago. All right, let's get another light in here and let's really backlight this object now. Let's rotate this 180 degrees. Obviously it's going to blow out the image. Let's just scale this way down, maybe something like that. Again, I don't want this light to be visible in the camera or anything like that. And now we're going to get this really nice kind of perimeter edge light. Like right now, though, like it is intersecting the geometry, so that's not what I want. So let's pull this back, maybe drop it down slightly and start to rotate this up on an angle. And let's hop back in here. All right, so now we're kind of getting this nice edge. Let's just start. I'm going to move down these lights here, so they're kind of in one section. And if I turn everything off, you can see this is actually like pretty dope just by itself here, you know, with this just backlit now, like, and you saw, you know, how like kind of low quality the detail was at a certain point, but now with just adding those kind of like little fuzzies in the hair on there, and we're going to continue to add more layers to this, but it already feels like it's got just like a little bit more like clarity and like substance to it, a little bit more realness. All right, let's pause this here. And let's turn these other lights back on. Let's select the bud. We're going to add another layer of hair. Ooh, it's probably, I forgot to turn the dynamics off on that. I want to make sure I don't like crash the machine here. All right, let's go back to simulate, hair object, add hair. Again, insane, but let's bring down the guides. Maybe the length now will be 0.2. We want these to be significantly less, and maybe we'll do 20, and since they're small, again, we can start dropping down the segments. We don't need all that. Now, as far as like what the material is, that hair layer, we're gonna have to tweak this as well. So that will kind of be the next thing we should take a look at. So for this one, you know what? I probably am just going to copy the previous hair, and throw that on there. And we're just going to change a couple of the settings. One, let's just do less on the color here, like a little bit brighter. I want this one to kind of fall more in the spectrum of white, and we probably keep that there. So maybe just something like that would be totally fine. And I think the thickness and everything else can kind of stay the same. Let's not do any bend or any curl on this one. I just kind of want these to be like really small, like little fuzzies to this. So let's so that's on the material. Just make sure, again, I'll drag and drop it on. Okay, so this one will be kind of like, because they're longer still, but they're thin. So we'll call this thin fuzz, and then we'll call this one, like, this is just like the white hair. So that's like just like white little fuzzy hair that's all over it. I'll just keep making sure to hit save here, and let's preview this. All right, so I might add maybe some more of these little like white hairs. I really want those to kind of like cover the whole thing, but like already I'm like, yes, this is starting to look really kind of dope, right? And you can stylize this more and do some like minimal lighting and have it feel more moody, but now it's like really starting to kind of have a little bit more believability to it, right? Like if we were to take this, all the hairs that we added, and just turn this off for a second, you can see how less interesting this looks. And something that I've kind of noticed is anytime you want something to be a little bit more photorealistic, and let me just crank these settings a little bit higher for a moment. Anytime you want something to be a little bit more photorealistic, it comes down so much to just making, adding layers. That's it. Adding layers on objects, adding layers of elements between the camera and the subject matter. And that's how you start to make things feel a little bit more realistic. Something I don't think we talked about is like the focal length of the camera. This is like such a big pet peeve of mine, is leaving it to the default 36 millimeter for like whatever reason. Like obviously, like if you have a legit reason to use a 36 millimeter lens, then by all means use a 36 millimeter lens. However, if you don't have like a reason for it, don't forget that that's like an artistic choice. The camera lens, very, very important to make sure that you're thinking about the mood of that. This is an art form within itself, what that focal length, and everyone's kind of aware of that at this point. I hope, like a photographer doesn't just like any kind of random camera just like pick it up for anything, and it's just like, yeah, whatever lens is on there's what I'm shooting with. It's like, no, that's like a very important decision. And that's one of the things about being a 3D artist, is that we really have to wear all those hats. All right, so let's start getting funky with this. I'm gonna add some more hairs to this though. Let's add some more orange hairs to this. That might be too much. That's really kind of loading it up. I mean, it's cool, but let's like do half of that. You know what? Let's go back. Let's go like maybe 4,500 at the very most. And I'm thinking more of these thin ones will be a little bit more interesting, and even like the white hairs that we're adding on. All this is just giving it that like a little bit of extra depth to this piece and kind of like realism and believability to it. All right. So now let's take this one step further. Remember I said I wasn't planning on using this material as it is here? Well, that's still kind of the goal. And so I'm going to change this from glossy to a specular material. And I'm going to add some a scattering medium in. All right, so let's do that. Let's open up our node editor. So let's just kind of reorganize this a little bit. I don't know if I'm going to use this displacement anymore. We'll keep it in there for now. It's not really all that big of a deal. Let's just restructure this here. All right. Now, a lot of times I'll just use like a simple like RGB spectrum here, and I'll plug stuff into both the scattering as well as the absorption, right? Which could just totally be fine here, but I think materials look really dope, especially subsurface scattering, if you throw gradients in there on top of the already like obvious aspect that, you know, in subsurface scattering, you're going to be able to see like somewhat through the material, and you'll get, you know, various hues through that, which is really kind of cool. But I think if you do gradients, sometimes you can force that a little bit further, you know, and there's like pros and cons of each software. Like sometimes like I just feel like I have to jump into Redshift to get like a certain like forced subsurface scattering look. Sometimes it's easier for me to do an Octane. So I really kind of jump around from project to project on that, because some things just work better in others. You know, they're both great tools, and you gotta, for me, I have to use both of them. I don't think I could just work one out for my workflow, but for this one, we're just gonna keep jamming on Octane. So let's grab a gradient in here. I don't want to grab this Cinema 4D gradient. I am gonna want to grab the Octane one. Where are you? It's somewhere in here, and I think my eyes are just playing with me a little bit. Oh, Octane gradient, there we go. I was just looking for gradient, not Octane. Okay, so we'll grab this gradient, and we'll also plug this in now to the absorption. Now, this is just going to be black and white, and you know what? We may as well throw this on our object. As we're working on it, whatever, let's add that to the bud. All right, so now it's going to do some like funky stuff, and obviously like we've got a lot of lights, and it's glowing and all that. All right, so this and the gradient's black and white, so I don't want that either. I do want to add one of the it's like a sine wave, a linear sine wave here, and let's pull this back down here as well, and let's add a projection node on there. Don't know which way it's going to be projecting, but we will want to probably change that at some point anyway. And let's get some colors in here. So this is a really good opportunity to start thinking about what your color palette is going to be. Now I want to go trippy with this. I want to go like super cool neon, like Dazed in a Haze kind of vibe. So I'm going to just like pull maybe a little bit more yellow or orange, excuse me, into this yellow, maybe something like that. And like we can push the saturation level on it, and then we'll maybe dip this into like more of an orange. And again, I'm gonna like the saturation is gonna be pretty substantial for all this, and then the final one will be kind of like a little bit darker red. All right, again, we're probably gonna have to jump back in here and change these. All just depends on, you know, the way this is going to look on the material. Now I'm gonna plug this gradient in to the transmission in this material also. So let's just do that. Let's go. Boop, drop that in there. Okay, so now we're getting some kind of funky stuff. Now, I don't like how it's being applied to this, and that's because, like, you know, this was a 3D scan, right? So, like, it's really kind of coming in here and making some like, funky places where this gradient is falling, because, like, the 3D scan, how it does UV maps, it's, like, super patchy if you've ever opened up the UV maps to one of these things. As far as the scattering goes, density to 1, let's, like, increase that. I don't want it to be all that see-through, but then we're also going to want to change the way it's projected. For this, I wonder if like something just like a spherical projection could work to show off kind of like our gradient. And then, you know, as far as like position, we can come in here and start adjusting that any moment as well. Now, our lights might be a little bit too strong currently. I didn't like dial any of these down, so we might need to go in here and start like tweaking some of our light settings ever so slightly. We don't need this node anymore, so let's delete that one. That was like kind of our color node. Let me just see what this geometry looks like without any of the bumps, normals, or displacements. Let's see, is it changing? Because I do want something that feels trippy, but you know, and not like crazy, like realistic or anything like that. So this could kind of work. Let's keep going. All right, so as far as the transform, I might rotate this 90 degrees. Let's see, will that do it? Yeah, okay. And then maybe move this down in the Y value. I might need to and want to compress some of this as well, like in the gradient. Not exactly sure exactly what we want, but I think I want more yellow into it. Yeah, who knows? We're getting there. All right, let's close out of this material for a second. Let's start messing with some of the lighting again. So let's go up to this one in the top right. I think everything is like just set to like 100%. Yeah, and I don't think I want that. So let's like drop this down so it's a little bit less intense. I don't want it like just bleeding through. Maybe add a little bit of a tonal value to this. So again, I'll add a an RGB spectrum here. And let's not make it pure white. Let's give it some sort of substance to it. Bring more of that warmth back in here. Then we could maybe grab, let's see, this backlight. Yeah, let's grab the backlight. Let's like make this a little bit more subtle because it's really kind of intense behind it. Now it was cool look before, you know, I'm not denying that. It was definitely kind of a cool little vibe before. Let's just copy the shader and paste it in here. For just like that very stylized backlit kind of element. Let's just bring this in to kind of like a pinkish area. You'll see I'm just going to start playing with colors here. And then like the stuff that we add into the scene should kind of like complement this and kind of really get into this cool, trippy, like neon vibe. That's what we're going for. All right, so like don't forget to like this is like the first look at like the style and the design of the NFT that I'm building. So this is the first time anyone has seen this yet. You know, I want to get a little bit more yellow. I'm going to delete these. I don't think I need these in this one. So I'm just going to like remove these out. Let's edit. Let's just clean that up and get those out of here. Now, as far as like the transform, you know, I have no idea. I just want to see if I can maybe pull back. Bring in some more of that yellow. It doesn't really seem like it's coming back in all that well. Maybe this is really kind of driven right now by that yellow. So let's go back into the transform. Yeah, I think that's good. Now, yeah, I kind of see it coming back in here. So yeah, it was in there before. Let's just, there we go. All right, sweet. Let's keep building. All right, I'm gonna mess with the hair a little bit, like the orange hairs here. I might add a little bit more, and I also might make the material of them. I might bring this into like a little bit more of a yellow as well, because I want it to like pop off this kind of nicely. So let's do that. Let's add a little bit more yellow, and let's get some of this kind of like muddy orange out of here. I still want like a nice gradient. So let's keep this darker and maybe make this just a little bit brighter. Yeah, maybe something like that could work. I might even make these just a touch thinner. So the thickness, let's go like 0.2 instead. And then we'll do the same thing with, yeah, maybe even thinner. That's fine. We'll keep it. We'll keep it like that for now. Let's make the tip just a little bit thinner though. Let's go into the camera imager now, and we're gonna have a lot to play with in here as well. You know, let's just keep this so it's kind of moving fast and clean. Let's do some hot pixel removal, and let's keep moving forward. All right, so I'm going to merge another object into this. And so it's going to be another 3D scanned object. So let's grab this, and it is a hand. And I had already come in here and posed this. So I had already rigged it and stuff like that. But for just like the sake of time for this piece, I can't really go and take the time to to do the whole rigging process of the hand, but it was really simple. I honestly just had a 3D scan of a hand, and I took Cinema 4D's character builder and just like attached it only to the hand, so I could just like really kind of quickly come in here and pose it. So let's just move this off to the side, and we're just going to kind of position the hand just so the hand actually feels and looks like it's holding this. So let's move this. Yeah, because like right now it's just going through this thumb. Boop. Maybe something like that. Maybe just down a little. Excellent. This kind of feels, this feels good. Maybe up just a touch more. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so now we got the hand holding the bud. Let's hop back into our camera, and we are going to zoom out a little bit further. Maybe somewhere in here, and we'll probably move this up a little bit more. Maybe we could zoom in a little bit more too. All right. Now we got to texture the hand and make a material for the hand. For now, yeah, let's just start from scratch again. Why not? We'll come in here and we'll do another specular material. And we'll open this up because obviously we want to have some shading onto this. And again, let me bring in some of the textures, so easier to import. Now we're going to drive this. I don't want this to be like a realistically textured hand. Now what I do want is to have I want to play with like having like some realism in it, but also like super funky colors. We're tripping out on this, right? That's the whole idea behind this. And let's come in here to the medium. We're gonna add a scattering medium to this as well. You'll notice I like come back to like the like this layer manager version of it, like the folder structure when I do that, and that's because like it honestly ends up saving me a couple clicks just to like add that scattering. Like I don't have to like come through here to like look for it. It's really just like that simple. There's not a whole lot more to it. And now we're going to set this up very similar to how we set the other one up, and that is going to be now through like a bit of a gradient. So I want these to be funky, so let's grab that octane gradient again, and I'm going to plug this into both the scattering, or actually this one would be through the absorption, and then we're also going to put that into the missed it, toss that into the transmission. Let's just move this down and over, and let's get some funky colors. So I'm going to make this some sort of kind of like really vibrant, like magenta. All right, and I'll make this one kind of like a pale blue. So you're gonna start to see like what like the vibe is that I'm kind of going for here. Maybe even a little bit more like powder blue-ish. Yeah, something like that. Okay, and you know we'll come back here and we'll start tweaking these settings in a moment as well. Yet again, I am going to want some sort of projection onto this. I don't know what that is going to be quite yet. You know, we're going to need to come in here and let's see a render, right? So let's throw this onto the hand. Now, this is actually kind of cool. This is not really what I was thinking of doing it like transparent. You know, I like, you know, I wanted to have some roughness in here. Let's just do like 0.5 or something like that. Yeah, this is kind of more of the vibe that I was thinking. Now we're gonna have to like adjust some of our lighting here. I don't want it to be this transparent, but we could also start messing with the density. So let's increase the density here. Yeah, this is getting maybe a little bit more interesting, closer to a place that I'd want to go with it. Now, the way this texture is projected is definitely not what I want here. So we're going to have to add a texture projection onto this. So let's come down, right click, throw that on, and let's just say mesh UV, and we'll just do, I don't know. I don't really know all these projection types here. to kind of figure out exactly which one is the best. We can come in here in a saw wave triangle. Like, you can like start flipping these around. This is kind of cool, right? This is more what I want for this one, where the fingertips are going to start to have like a different kind of texture than the rest of the hand. You know, it kind of pulls your eye and the focus more to this, kind of being more of that illuminated area. Now, I think we're probably getting a little bit too close here with one of the lights, which would be this one that's like backlit. Well, no, I guess it's kind of cool. We do have to finish this this material up though. Let's see if this does anything for it. If we come in and we add an RGB spectrum, let's add that to the scene. Let's say that will come into the scattering. I don't know. Yeah, there we go. That's exactly what I was hoping for. All right, sweet. Let's hop back into the camera. All right, now we've got this really cool kind of gradient shift, the purples to the blues to the magentas, and I don't know if we're gonna want to tweak this at all. Let's see. Yeah, this is kind of cool. Let's pull both of these in a little bit more. Yeah, that's kind of sweet. All right, so just like looking at this, I don't like that little edge. I wonder if I can just try to like offset this a little bit and see maybe if I can like make an adjustment here. I don't know if we can like maybe just like move the position, or like if changing the scale would be better. Let's see. If I slide the X value around, that doesn't necessarily seem like it's doing a whole lot here. I might be able, like, yeah, this is slowly starting to work. Now, I don't know. Yeah, I just feel like that's like too extreme. I don't know if that's coming from the actual like sine wave, or the like the gradient, I mean. Right? Like if I pull that back, does that soften it up? No, I just think it's kind of some kind of like funky way it's projecting it here. So I think maybe the only way that I could like solve this is in fact by like slightly moving it. I'm not sure. Let's keep tweaking some of these settings. If I rotate on Z, yeah, that's kind of a frustrating. Oh, I think I had it there for a moment. Yeah, now it's giving me kind of like this harsh edge here. Wonder if we can unlock this. And what does like scale do? Nah, scale doesn't do anything. Let's bring that back to 1. Maybe in the gradient. What does even smoothing do? I have no idea. It doesn't seem like it does anything, right? I don't think it's doing nothing. Not at least for like my setup here. Maybe pull this back. What if I did another pink, like magenta on this side? Interesting, but not what I'm hoping for. Let's get that out of here. I'm just going to kind of bring this back to the center. I mean, this still looks cool. I was just like, I wanted this like nice and smooth, and maybe, I don't know, maybe it is the light. Let's see if I turn that light off back here. I don't know which light it is. I gotta get out of this. Okay, yeah, it is this light. That doesn't seem to have any effect on it. Let's see if any of these lights have any effect on that. Okay, so it could just be a light thing in the angle of this light. So let's try that. It could just be the angle of the light and how it's kind of interacting with that subsurface scattering, and maybe where a shadow's coming from the thumb. Let's maybe scale the width. That's interesting. Yeah, I think it might be coming from the light. Let's pop out of here for a moment. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Okay, I guess that's kind of dope actually. So like if I were to move this whole thing up, yeah, okay, that's kind of cool. Let's just bring it back. Sweet. All right. At least I know where it's coming from. It's not in the material anymore. It's from that light and how that light is kind of interacting with the geometry. All right, let's jump into this camera tag like we just mentioned that we were going to start playing with this a little bit. So highlight compression, definitely going to be a nice friend here. You know, you can see that this is kind of really getting blown out here. Obviously, like this light just might be a little bit too intense as it stands right now. And so, you know, there's always going to be a lot of different like adjustments that we're going to need to make to like lighting. Always feel like totally free and comfortable, like always kind of coming in here and making subtle little adjustments to everything. So let's do that. Let's just like tweak this light intensity a little bit. So it's not super hot on that. That's feeling a lot better. And so like, you know, toggling between this highlight compression, you can see now it doesn't have to like work as hard. I like that. So now we're getting some like kind of nice visual contrast. Now we got to start building atmosphere though. This doesn't really have a ton of personality quite. And so I would think I would like to add some like volumes. Let's add some VDBs in here. So VDBs, super easy to use in Cinema 4D, but we got to load them in. So I do have some VDB assets. So let's import one of these in. Okay, we've got it into our scene. And let's hit calculate. And now the scale definitely matters. Like this might be like in like too small. So we will want to like change that now. You can see our bounding box back here, and we're going to also have to mess with like the medium on this as well and dial that in. So let's start taking a look at this. So this number here, the volume step length, let's just bring this down and let's pop out of the camera for a second. Where the heck is this VDB at? I'm just going to move this off to the side for a moment. All right. Let's just make sure we got all this set up. Yep, cool. Density. All right. Let's just go in here and maybe let's increase this size. I must have like changed off of that. There we go. Okay, so now we're seeing that VDB in our scene here. Let's like move it back a little bit. Let's just zoom out here. I'm gonna like rotate this 90 degrees. Perfect. Let's bring this up a little bit closer here. What's nice about this one for the shape is it actually kind of like curves around, you know what I mean? So like the hand can kind of fit right in this groove. I think this one's going to be kind of cool. Let's drop our camera back down. We definitely will have to move this down a little bit and maybe even over. We'll figure out kind of like the spacing for this. There we go. Yeah, that's feeling really cool. Having some of that smoke kind of like fade up into the hand. Probably want to bring it down a little lower though. Sweet. Okay, now we want to get messing with its colors. Remember, I want this to be like really vibrant and kind of like super trippy and stuff like that. This light over here for me is still like a bit too intense. So I might pull this light back and down a little bit. Maybe even pull it forward. Up, forward, over, round, rotate it, right? That's just kind of like lighting. Lighting, you know, it doesn't matter like how often you do it. Like to get like the right light settings really just takes time. And I don't want it to interact too much with the kind of like clouds in here. But maybe something like this is kind of cool. All right, yeah, I think maybe something like this is cool. Might rotate it just a little bit, kind of face more. Light that object up. All right, and let's start messing with the actual fog now itself and getting some like really dope like color in here. So we're gonna go into that fog volume or VDB, right? And we're gonna start changing some of these colors. So right now, it's like just grays. Let's do something that's kind of like a powder blue, and like these are gonna be like super saturated. And let's go into the scattering and let's do another blue, but I want just like kind of like a shift in like tonal values, and like maybe this one kind of starts to fall more in to like a turquoise spectrum. Maybe we go back, maybe this is like getting a bit too purpley for me. Let's see how that looks. Maybe go a little bit lighter. Yeah, that's looking dope. Maybe we'll go back again. Maybe we'll pull this one more into that kind of like turquoise teal aspect. And then, you know, right now in the volume, it's a little bit too like dense here. So maybe we just like reduce this by half to like kind of thin this out a little bit more. And let's do another VDB file in here. So we'll come in here and, oh, wrong volume. Let's go into the object and let's say Octane VDB. And we'll do kind of the same thing. We'll just import another one because I want to start making layers to this. So we've got like this one fog back here, which I think is working pretty well. I might even, let's see if we can move this. Let's see, can we move this over? Kind of want the hand to kind of feel like it's more within this kind of like fog area. And maybe we take this camera, let's get a little bit closer to the subject. Yeah, that's feeling kind of pretty interesting. I might dial back a little bit on the intensity here. I'm not like crazy happy with, what is it? With this, yeah, with this light off to the left here, I think it might just still be a little bit too intense. Let's do like half. Yeah, that might be a lot better. I'm thinking so. And let's import that VDB now. So we'll grab another one. I've got a couple that I like, so you know, just be kind of my go-tos, kind of know which ones they are. And let's move this VDB volume so it's not in the same location. Move it to the front, and yet again we gotta like increase the scale of that. And I don't know the particular rotation that's going to be best for this one. So let's just rotate down, move it downwards, and maybe a bit forward. I don't know. We really got to get into our camera here. This could potentially work. I'll need to get the light out from inside that. Otherwise, we're always going to be seeing it here in Octane. Kind of a frustrating thing that you always permanently see it. I think it's going to be a new update, hopefully. And let's do the same exact thing. I might just... Well, I could probably just get close here with like the colors. You know, we're doing something that was kind of very powder blue in this one. And then for this one, we were doing something that was like more into like that turquoise spectrum. All right. Yeah. I mean, I think that's close enough. And you can see now it's just giving us a little bit of variety as it goes through. And I think I'm going to move this one down a little bit because I wanted to like start kind of like choking out the hand Let's go into the medium of it. Again, let's like reduce this so maybe we can see a little bit more through the actual hand itself. Pull a little bit more detail back into that. And then let's figure out this light. This light's killing me right now. And like, I don't like what it's doing inside that volume. So if I bring this up, I mean, even that's better than what it was. At least we're not seeing in the volume. Now, I would like to pull some of this light, you know, inside this volume. Let's just toggle this info off since this is what we're looking. And it could be really cool to have some like light leaking in through here so it doesn't just get so dark, right? Anything that can help kind of direct our eye to this kind of center focal point is really where we want to be at. So if I make like another light, and let's just rotate this light, maybe like almost 90, and let's push this light down now and over. I'll probably have it come off the screen so we don't actually see the light. Maybe move it over a little bit more and down. Maybe move it forward a little. Yeah, right. So that's going to pull some like light in here. I think this is looking pretty dope actually. And now the intensity might be a little too much. So let's take that intensity down. Let's say like 50 by like half, right? And so now you're getting some like nice kind of like lighter and darker areas kind of like shaded in here. We could do another area light as well. And so like these are all just kind of like supporting lights. Now at this point that will help kind of pull our eyes into like a specific area that we want. So let's rotate this one. And I'll move this one down, back, and back in our scene here. And then let's see if we can turn the visibility of this off. Yeah, so like see how we're getting like nicer contrast, like kind of mixed throughout this? That's kind of what I'm talking about for this piece. All right, now we gotta have like this wow factor in this like design. So let's pop in here. I'm gonna grab a Taurus. That's right, good old Taurus. You're like, what? Wow factor, Taurus? How does this add up? It will. Trust me. Let's change the pipe radius, something like 5. Let's do the what is it? Is it the ring segments? Let's bring this to 3. Yeah, there we go. And let's scale the radius of this. Well, not that much. Let's go with like, I don't know. Let's say what 200 looks like. Let's go with 300. $240. All right, let's stick with 240 for a minute and let's push this kind of up. All right, so this is going to create some sort of like framing. Maybe 250. Right, and so this is like the main part of like design, you know, before we even do anything further or push anything further. And it's just like, let's just make a dope frame. Let's try to get some interesting colors and something like vibrant here. I think a little bit of work still needs to be done on this bud, but let's make another material here. Let's just focus on one thing at a time. Let's create a diffuse material. On this diffuse material, let's add a little black body emission in here. And I'll say, let's add a RGB texture to this. Where is that RGB spectrum? And let's do like a yellow of some sort. Come back in here, keep the surface, and then like maybe in the intensity, dial this in so we get some more of like that color. Maybe I pull the temperature down a little bit more might help. And let's throw that onto the Taurus. Now that's a little bit too intense. So let's pull the pipe radius down as well. Having something thinner will probably be better. Having something less like visually intense, maybe increasing the brightness of this yellow. And Yeah, that's kind of feeling very, very interesting to me. A nice little glow. Maybe we can copy this and paste it. And then if I get like a MoGraph cloner object and throw this into the cloner object, and then we do something, instead of grid, let's do linear. I want like everything to be like centralized and focused in here. I can probably say render instance for this one, and let's have no movement in the Y, and let's have movement in the Z. Now, I don't know how many of these I'm gonna wanna put in there. And also I do know that I don't need anywhere near this many segments because it's just like a glowing line. So like we could probably get away with something like, you know what I mean? Like the geometry is like super low, which is probably a pretty smart thing to do. And like let's add a MoGraph effector. Let's do a step effector to this. And that way, as they go back, I think it might be cool if, you know what, we actually probably do this right inside the cloner object. Like what if these, interesting. I think I just want them to kind of just like twist on their own axis. This could be cool. I'd like them to scale up. Now this is where I kind of fall into the problem with using the step effector, because if I do the step effector to scale them up, this could work, but it's also going to let's do like, it's also going to scale up the radius of them. You know what I mean? Like not, or like the what do they call it here? The pipe radius, right? And I just want the ring radius to scale up. So that might be a little bit harder to do, but let's just hop back into the cloner object. Let's move these back like 600. Yeah, I want them to like really kind of pull back a little bit more. Let's do like 800. Actually, let's just go for a full 1000 here to push these back in space. And let's take this step effector and expand that up. Yeah, this is looking pretty dope to me. This is looking dope now. I could go into this cloner object and maybe, let's see if we can rotate this a bit more, so it like fills in some of these negative areas. I think that's kind of sick. That might be too much. I still want to have that spiral feel like it's really like tight and connected. Maybe let's try like 3. All right, I think as far as like the hairs on the bud go, like the little fuzz, I think maybe I ended up going a little bit too much on this. And I think if we focus just a touch more on the actual texture, you know, let's add a little like roughness in here. So it's like a little bit more opaque, you know, and like has more of that waxy kind of feel. Maybe even come in and reduce all these. Let's go like 12. And let's bring this one to 20. And let's open up the node editor. And in this gradient, I still think I want less of that deep red. And for me, my taste, maybe pull this yellow a little bit brighter. Maybe this orange a little brighter as well. Dope. And I think we're in like a really nice spot right now. So, you know, this is like a total like new piece that you are getting the chance to see it right now at this moment. And this is going to be all audio driven, audio reactive. So I think some really cool stuff is going to happen here. And we set ourselves up for some really cool animation aspects too. You know, we've got these lights that are like tucked in to these like little like clouds that are in here. So, you know, if you're thinking audio reactive and you have like these lights flickering to like the tempo, the beats per minute down below, and like the clouds are kind of lighting up almost like lightning, you can have these this triangle that's cloned and recessed, like that repetition that's going back into space. It could be like slowly twisting or expanding out and compacting in, contracting back in. There's a lot of stuff now that we're kind of like set up for success for a really like dope trippy animation. Now a last couple like little tweaks in here. You know, we could add some depth of field on. We haven't done any of that thus far. You know, let's like increase our aperture. I don't know if I want that to start to fade off on the back. It could be kind of cool. Let's just say Bud Geo. You know, it's subtle, but it will all start to really pull in our eyes. So this might be a little too limited. If we do 6, that might really kind of like start to soften these images as they go back. But that's it. I think this one's pretty much here. I might tweak this and say, like, just for like this purposes, let's throw in our camera imager, let's say enable AI denoiser, and maybe just point this to 0.1 or 0.2. We could throw the info back onto this, and you can see that like a lot of these post-processing and these effects now will only show up once it completes that 2000. Let's drop the samples down just to like 1000, so maybe we can get to it a little bit faster. Perfect. And now at any point you can come back in here and start adjusting some of the glows, maybe spectral intensity, you know, so we can get some like a different like haze through some of these colors. Yeah, like that looks pretty dope to me. We got these really intense glows coming through the fog. So hopefully, you know, a big takeaway from this is just like focus on the design. Now like this is ready to animate. I don't like jumping into animation until like I can be satisfied with the visual design aesthetic of it. Thank you everybody for following along with me. Thank you, Matthias. Thank you, Maxon. Thank you, the whole Maxon team. My pleasure to be here, and I hope everyone enjoyed the lesson today. You can find me at yobrilly.com, yo_Brilly on Instagram and Twitter.